Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a place where ancient mythology, visceral human rituals, and some highly debated archaeology all crash right into each other. We are looking at the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu, Nepal. And this isn't just a building. It's this massive, sprawling, 264-hectare spiritual epicenter right on the banks of the sacred Bagmati River. Whether you're already deeply familiar with Hindu traditions or you're just fascinated by how ancient history manages to survive and breathe in the modern world, the story of Pashupatinath is absolutely captivating.
So let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to cover the divided divine bowl, the 5 faces of Shiva, the daily rituals of life and death, echoes of the ancient past, and finally, how it remains a resilient living sanctuary today. All right, Section 1, the divided divine bull, a tale of 2 temples. To really get Pashupatinath, we have to start with this foundational legend that was born right out of the ashes of the great Mahabharata war. The Pandava brothers were walking around with this immense guilt after fighting that destructive war against their own family. And to find peace and seek some kind of forgiveness, they were told they had to find Lord Shiva. But here's the thing. Shiva didn't exactly want to forgive them all that easily. He actually took the form of a divine bull and hid up in the Himalayas. Legend has it that when the Pandavas finally spotted him, the incredibly strong brother Bhima tried to just grab the bull. Well, the bulls started sinking right into the earth, and Bhima only managed to grab its hump. That exact spot in India became the legendary Kedarnath temple. But the bull's head? That re-emerged all the way over in Kathmandu, Nepal, and that site became Pashupatinath. So these 2 incredibly distant, magnificent temples are eternally linked together as one complete divine form of Shiva. Now, a really crucial point here is understanding the very name of the deity. Pashu refers to all living beings, right? But in a deeper, more philosophical sense, it means bound worldly souls, us, basically, tethered by our ignorance. Pati means lord or master. So Shiva as Pashupatinath isn't just some master of beasts. He is the ultimate liberator. He's the divine force that actually frees our bound souls from that continuous, endless cycle of birth and death. Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 faces of Shiva, decoding the Mukhalingam. Now, at the physical center of the temple, the inner sanctum houses something incredibly rare, a Mukhalingam. Unlike a standard, smooth, cylindrical Shiva lingam you might be used to seeing, a Mukhalingam actually has faces carved right into it. And it's brilliant how this maps perfectly to the cosmos. It's what's called a chaturmukha, meaning 4 faces are visible looking out in the cardinal directions. Plus, there's a 5th unseen face looking straight up to the zenith. It maps perfectly to the 5 elements. The west face, Sajojata, is earth and creation. North is Vamadeva, representing water and preservation. South is Agora, fire and dissolution. East is Tapurusha, air and consciousness. And that invisible upward face, that's Ishana, representing space and ultimate universal union. It's literally a perfect self-contained map of the entire cosmic cycle of creation and destruction. Oh, and there's this really fun secondary myth about the temple's origins too. It said that Shiva once took the form of a deer just to enjoy the lush Bagmati forests. When the gods finally caught up to him, his antler broke, and that broken antler formed the original linga. Also, a quick warning for anyone planning a visit. Local belief strictly dictates that if you look at the statue of the divine bull, Nandi, before looking at the Shiva lingam, you're going to be reborn as an animal in your next life. So, maybe keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, Section 3, Rituals of Life and Death, the Banks of the Bagmati. Let's move from the theology to the incredibly visceral daily realities happening right on the riverbanks. Because Pashupatinath is definitely not some quiet, dusty museum. It is intensely, vibrantly alive. The rhythm of this place starts early. By 4 a.m., the temple opens. By 4:30, the Bhatta priests. This is a hereditary lineage of South Indian Brahmins who have exclusively served this temple for over 500 years. They begin their morning rituals. And get this, only these specific priests are allowed to physically touch the idol. The energy of the day then builds and builds, culminating at 6:30 p.m. with the Bagmati aarti, which is this highly synchronized, purely joyous offering of light, oil lamps, and beautiful chants. But here is this striking juxtaposition that really defines the space. While that joyous, musical, aarti celebration is happening on one side of the river, literally just steps away at the Arya Ghats, somber, open-air cremations are taking place at the exact same time. It's this profound,
completely uninterrupted cycle of life, celebration, and death, just happening side by side every single day.
And for the grieving families at those ghats, the process doesn't just end when the cremation fire goes out. Tradition mandates a grueling 13-day Hindu mourning period. That number, 13, represents a profound, incredibly dedicated window of time required to ease the departed soul safely into the spirit realm. The mourners often stay right by the temple in an ashram-like building called Kriya Putri Bhavan. And the restrictions they undergo are intense. We're talking wearing only pure white cloth, sleeping on rice straw mattresses with their heads pointing north, completely abstaining from human touch, and giving up any stimulating foods. On the final day, the rituals even include grasping a cow's tail to help guide the spirit on its journey. But interestingly enough, because modern, fast-paced life makes a strict 13-day isolation really difficult for some folks, there's actually a recent socioeconomic trend of hiring surrogate mourners, literally mourners for hire who step in to perform these exact rites on a family's behalf. Okay, let's zoom way back for Section 4, Echoes of the Ancient Past, the Indus Valley Connection. Now we're plunging into the deep, and honestly, sometimes hotly contested archaeological history surrounding where Pashupati worship actually came from. When we look back about 4,000 years to the Indus Valley civilization, specifically the Mohenjo-Daro excavations, we find this artifact known as the Pashupati seal. It's fascinating. It features a figure with 3 visible faces. The figure is sitting in a highly advanced, really difficult yoga posture called Mula Bandhyasana, with the heels locked together. And they're sitting perfectly calm while completely surrounded by wild beasts, a rhino, tiger, elephant, and buffalo. What's more, this seal was dug up in the exact same soil layers as polished, cylindrical stone lingams. The former Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, Sir John Marshall, looked at this and identified it as a clear ancestor to the multi-headed forms of Shiva. He actually noted that the specific massive horns on the figure's headdress theoretically evolved over the millennia into the sacred Trishula, the trident that we so closely associate with Shiva today. But as with all ancient history, this seal is the center of an ongoing academic debate, and we want to neutrally lay out exactly what both sides are saying here. On one side, scholars argue that the seal's highly specific yogic posture, the presence of those lingams, and its exact match to Vedic descriptions of Rudra prove an unbroken indigenous spiritual tradition native to India. Now, on the flip side, some mainstream Western critics and historians argue that the seal is more of a generic Lord of Animals motif. They view it as a broader Eurasian or Proto-Elamite archetype that was imported into the region, rather than a direct one-to-one ancestor of modern Hinduism. So it remains this really fascinating flashpoint in historical archaeology. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, a resilient living sanctuary. Leaving the ancient archaeological debates behind, let's just take a moment to look at the incredible physical endurance of the modern temple structure of Pashupatinath. When you trace the tangible architectural history of the site, it's a pretty remarkable journey. I mean, worship here dates back to at least the 4th century, right? The first recorded structure was built by a Lichavi king in the 5th century. By the 1400s, that tradition of the Bhatta priests was fully established. And the stunning multi-tiered pagoda structure we see today, that was actually rebuilt in 1697 by King Bhupalandra Malla after a fire. Think about that for a second. That means continuous, unbroken worship has occurred on this exact plot of land for nearly 2 millennia. And hey, remember that deep, mythological connection to Kedarnath we talked about at the start? It actually lives on today in this beautiful, modern tradition. When milk abhishekam, which is a sacred bathing ritual, is performed, the temple gifts devotees a string of 54 Rudraksha beads. It's a widely held belief that to create a perfectly auspicious, complete 108 bead mala, a devotee must combine these 54 beads from Pashupatinath with 54 beads obtained all the way from Kedarnath. It's like putting a giant spiritual puzzle together. But perhaps the absolute most profound testament to this temple's resilience occurred recently, in the year 2015. Nepal was struck by a devastating earthquake that tragically caused massive destruction and loss of life across the region. Even within the temple complex itself, nearly 80% of the surrounding outer structures were destroyed or heavily damaged. Yet, miraculously, the main inner temple housing the Mukhalinga, it stood completely unblemished, not a single scratch. For the devotees standing there looking at the rubble, this was an undeniable, visible display of divine strength. And that brings us to our final thought for today. Whether you approach this site through the academic lens of a 4,000-year-old Indus Valley seal, the mythical lens of a divided divine bull,
Or just the stark, visceral reality of a modern cremation fire burning right beside a joyful aarti? What does Pashupatinath actually reveal about our universal connection to life and death? If nothing else, it stands as a powerful reminder that creation and dissolution aren't opposites. They are just two faces of the exact same cosmic reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to explore even more about the incredible, deep history we all share.